Good space time, y'all! In this episode of the Citizen Cosmos podcast, we spoke with Ivan Poon, CEO of Switcheo Labs and the co-founder of Carbon Protocol, a cross-chain DeFi protocol built on Cosmos. We discussed the ecosystem of Switcheo's products, the difficulties of building DEXes, order book limitations, and their benefits, challenges of working in decentralized environments, and of course, the most important topic of them all, cats and their cuteness.
If you look at my resume, I've never actually worked for anyone for very long because I like to control my destiny. I like to have a lot of say over my future, over what I do. And this control over what I can, how I use my money is also very fundamental to me. Netflix came along and everyone stopped pirating shit. Everyone just signed up for Netflix. Why? Because Netflix gave a better user experience. They go to Netflix, they have everything, they just one button, it streams, fine, it's $15, I'll pay for it. And that's the thing we actually need to do. We need to give users a better experience than the banks. So this is like a USD token that you can actually trade. You can long and short Bitcoin, you can long and short Ethereum on.
I have one suggestion for you. Don't hire Doc1 if you're gonna plan to do a stable coin. Because Doc1, I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. Before we rock it off into the podcast, here are the latest news from the sponsor of this episode, Cyber. The Cyber Congress DAO has opened the portal, and Atom, ETH, Terra, and Osmo users that meet the requirements can claim their gift and their moon citizenship on SIB.ai. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Citizen Cosmos. Today with me, I have Ivan, the co-founder of Carbon Protocol and Switcheo Labs. I hope I didn't get it wrong as usual. I do have the tendency to get all those things wrong. Ivan, hi, man. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Serge. So you got it all right. No worries. Super stoked to be here.
Nice.
Yeah, so thanks for having me.
I'm really glad to, because I'm going to be honest with you. We've interviewed all sorts of I'm not going to do the whole A-class, B-class things, but like big projects, smaller projects, tiny, medium, whatever. And I have to say, the amount of questions I have for you from the audience today, I'm really sorry, guys, who's in the audience, because I definitely won't be able to ask all of them, because there is like a list of them. And this is really impressive, actually. I'm really impressed. So kudos on gathering such a great community around your project, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone who asked all the questions. You guys are good.
So I'm going to go with our first obvious thing. Can you please, for the audience and for me, introduce yourself in your own words? What do you do? Whatever else you want to add to that, you're welcome. It's all yours.
Yeah, right. So I've been with Switcheo Labs since the start. I was co-founder, and we've been in the space for really pretty long. But most of us right now know us for Carbon. We are the team or the labs behind Carbon Protocol, which is a Cosmos SDK app chain. And what we're really trying to build is a decentralized future where any sort of financial structure, any sort of financial action can be done on this one protocol called Carbon. And the reason why we started it is really because we tried using Ethereum, we tried using Bitcoin, and it really doesn't solve everything. Because for Bitcoin, you only can transfer funds from person A to person B. And for Ethereum, it's just Ethereum. Everyone's using it. It's crowded. The fees are high. And it's not cross-chain compatible, right? So when we started on our journey, we interacted with many other blockchain protocols out there. And we realized that there was this gap in the market. And that's what made us build this team. And after many years of experimentation and building together, what we've came up with is our current flagship product, our current flagship protocol, Carbon.
So you did say flagship product, and before I start bombarding you with several questions, that means there is other products. And yeah, as far as I understand, help me to figure out the order here. I have here Switcheo, Carbon, Demex, Zilswap, Zolar. So help me to put them in the right order. Who is what? Who is where?
Yeah, okay. So like I said, software development team, right? We have a team of 20 over developers, software engineers, designers, etc. So we actually built a lot of different sort of software. Some of them are our own babies. Some of them are contracted other third-party companies who are saying that, hey, we're going to give you a grant to build this awesome thing on my protocol, or sort of development incentive, right? That's the reason why as a labs team, we have multiple products. But let's go through them one at a time. Let's talk about Carbon first, which I think most of the people here today, most of the community here today are excited to hear about. So Carbon, the reason why we built it is because of an earlier product, which is a DEX, a decentralized exchange, that was on different blockchain. It was called NEO. And at that time, this exchange could only serve, we built it because, like I said earlier on, when we were exploring the various blockchain protocols out there, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and NEO, for example, we realized that, hey, there's a huge gap here. DEXes don't exist. The tokens we purchased in the ICOs, in whatever fundraise, cannot actually be liquid. And we have to wait and beg for people like centralized exchanges, Binance, or whatever to list them before we actually have that liquidity. So that's actually when we started the journey to build DEXs for different types of protocols. And pretty early on, we realized that, hey, this is not going to work. And that's because DEXs that you build, even today, right, like Uniswap, etc., they're only on a single protocol. And because of that, you're kind of isolated, you're kind of siloed into that blockchain. And it's really not cross compatible. It's really not Binance. It's not really not FTX. You don't have a truly decentralized exchange because a truly decentralized exchange needs to support any sort of token on any sort of protocol. When we realized that, hey, this single isolated way of building DEXs doesn't work, we went to look, okay, what's the correct way to build it? And then we searched across the state of the art at that time. We looked at Cosmos, we looked at Polkadot, we looked at a whole bunch of technologies that were very new at that time. That was like 2 years ago, before people were even looking at multi-chain. And we decided like, hey, Cosmos SDK, the Cosmos ecosystem is the most mature. It has the most amount of fundamental code, foundational code out there. And we could use this technology to build what we wanted to build, which is a decentralized exchange that's more than just a spot trading sort of venue within a certain, that trades one token for another in just one isolated silo. We wanted protocol that could trade any sort of thing, not just a token from a single blockchain, but across multiple blockchains. And on top of that, right, we also wanted to support any sort of other financial action that you could do in traditional finance. So that would mean things like futures, perpetuals, options, borrowing, lending, bonds, etc. So we wanted to make sure that this is actually possible in a truly decentralized fashion. And that started us on our journey towards building Carbon and now Demex. So Demex is the second product, okay? And Demex is basically what we call a reference user interface to showcase how a protocol like Carbon could be used. So currently Demex supports order book trading, it supports liquidity pools, EMMs, and the whole suite of what you expect to find in DeFi today. And what we are hoping is that as we gain users in Demex, eventually people will look at Carbon as a protocol for finance and build their own products on top of it, whether it's lending and borrowing, whether it's different types of option structures, or even just using the EVM sandbox within our protocol to construct their own novel financial products. That's what I think most people here today know and want to talk about. I do want to mention the other products that you brought up. Most of them currently are on the Zilliqa blockchain. So we are actually the leading protocol for Zilliqa. So you will find any sort of DeFi application that you will find on blockchain like Ethereum. You'll find it on Zilliqa as well, and most probably it's built by us. So we have built Zilswap, which is like the Uniswap DEX. We have built Xylo, which is like a launch pad platform. And we have Arki, which is an NFT trading platform. I think it's the leading one in Zilliqa currently. And then we have Zolar, which I also think is the leading. I mean, I'm using leading quite loosely here, but that's to my knowledge. It's the leading NFT game on Zilliqa at this point. So in terms of the Zilliqa ecosystem, we're also pretty well known as builders for the ecosystem.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that the name Switcheo, like you said yourself already, but now that you were telling the story, the name Switcheo does come up to mind, not from even 2, but like 3 years ago. And I have heard it, right? It is from Zilliqa and Ethereum. You did migrate to Cosmos after already starting on those protocols. Am I correct?
Yes. Actually, we started, like I said just now, we started really early on this blockchain called NEO. And I think probably you have heard it from there, like Switcheo Exchange. We call it was just Switcheo previously. But because it's siloed to those two blockchains, we actually invented, or not really invented, but we launched one of the first atomic swaps between two different protocols. But because it was slow, not really scalable, etc., that's why we looked outwards and we found Cosmos, the Cosmos ecosystem, and we started building on Carbon.
What attracted you to Cosmos the most? Was it the idea of IBC? Was it the TCP/IP over blockchain? What was the biggest attraction for you?
For us, we examined a few protocols, but definitely Cosmos was the leader by far. A few reasons. The first reason was that its fundamental consensus algorithm was rock solid. That it's tendermint, and it's like produced in production already by Cosmos Hub. And the way that the whole SDK was structured was such that it's really permissionless. It's independent. We do not need, for example, the permission of Cosmos to launch our blockchain and sort of hook up to it. We do not need to bid for pair slots like in Polkadot. And it doesn't really matter whether the other chains succeed or fail. Independently, we like the idea of being permissionless in terms of building as well. So that was definitely the first point. Second point was really the structure of the whole code in terms of technology was really clean. They really separated the consensus layer with the application layer. You could really bootstrap things very quickly. It was written in Golang, which runs natively on the Nodes machine, rather than a virtual machine like in Ethereum or other computing platforms. And that really allows us to fulfill our vision. Our dream was to have to have really sophisticated financial constructs, financial actions to be performed on the blockchain. And very early on, we felt that it was impossible to do it on EVM. So impossible meaning not literally impossible, but more like not viable. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be fighting with the rest of the world. You're fighting with projects that are launching a token, minting NFTs, and I don't know, whatever other crazy things that they're doing. And for us, running it on this independent chain, natively on the machine of the node, and having only that run gave us the confidence that eventually when we make it, or when the protocol makes it, it's going to be scaled. It's not going to collapse under its own weight. So that was the second thing that was really important for us. I think the final thing was the concept of IBC was really enticing to us. We really believe that that's the way forward, because if everyone understands what their protocol is supposed to do, and then you kind of link them up in a permissionless, trustless way, and that's, I feel, is the correct architecture for scalability. That's kind of the architecture that the internet should have been built on also, where you have independent entities, and then you talk to each other based on your own trust model, based on how you want it to be structured, rather than having like a certain entity govern things and whitelist things and things like that, and scenarios like that. So the whole concept, we loved it from the start.
Could you say that Cosmos in a way has an architecture where you at the same time can have competition but don't have to fight for the block space, because you have app specific blockchains which can communicate, which still leaves the ability to compete with each other in the free market, but they don't need to fight for the block space?
Correct. So more importantly is you can compete. You don't waste resources. It's efficient. You don't waste the users' fees. And more importantly is also it's still composable. The blockchain still can talk to each other, which was the whole reason why we wanted to build a separate protocol, because we felt that we don't want to be siloed in our own DEX, our own blockchain that we chose.
I'm going to pick on you a little bit. Don't worry. Just a devil's advocate thing. You said Ethereum is just Ethereum. What did you mean by that? I would love to hear a little bit more of your thoughts there.
So I feel that Ethereum as a global consensus layer, it's okay. And at the end of the day, a lot of the assets that we use are from Ethereum, say Ether, USDC, WBTC, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's probably not the correct solution for a lot of things, including building the financial railways that we're trying to build. So the way we do it is we custom build it we custom build code that it's meant to run in a specific way, right? If you're going to do borrowing and lending, you're not going to do crazy things. So we don't need a full virtual machine for that. We just need the building blocks that represent these various states, these various actions that need to be done. Whereas for Ethereum, they try to make it a sandbox, which is good and bad. The good thing is that you bootstrap this sort of ecosystem, this sort of community. But the bad side is that you're constrained to certain limitations with the EVM. And more importantly, at the end of the day, it's never going to be truly cross-compatible with another chain, unlike the IBC chains, where the protocol already built in this knowledge of communication with other protocols.
You said also for you, one of the things was like a gap in the market. What specific gap are you talking about? You're talking about a gap of a protocol like your own, which can communicate and not silo it out? Or was there another gap that you saw and then that what came up as something to fix that gap?
Yeah, so early on, it was really a gap in just DEXes in general, in decentralized protocols in general. But with Uniswap and the whole boom of DeFi, that is a lesser reason now. But there is still gaps in certain areas. So what we have solved is DeFi or DEXes within a single protocol. We have not solved cross-chain exchanges. We have not solved derivatives in a scalable way. We have not solved on-chain options. We have not solved things that we're trying to build that we have already built. So we have solved it on other blockchains, but not on Ethereum. So for example, on Demex, there is we can do a full on-chain central limit order book, which means it looks exactly like Binance or FTX. And that's all running on the node itself. It's all running on the validators. There's no centralized backend hosting this order book. So now these are the gaps that we are actually trying to fill. And there's still a lot more that we are going to build in the coming months and years.
You mentioned order books, and I have a question. And again, please correct me if I'm going off the ramp here. I have noticed lately, I don't know since when, I assume maybe like a few months, I would say, that there is at least a couple of projects now that arise. I think one is called Say, if I'm not mistaken. And there was another one that what they're creating is basically an order book, a blockchain, which is an order book. So for projects like Carbon, what should I say? Or should I say Switcheo Labs in general with all of the ecosystem that exists underneath it? Is that the way forward to create their own big like blockchain order books? Or will they use things like other, when I say order book, it kind of confuses my head because it's an order book, but it's a whole blockchain that is a specific order book. So what is the way here for something like Carbon and Switcheo? Is that to create your own things like that and to connect them because IBC allows you to do that? Or is the way to use side chains, which are actual order books, which give the feeds to other protocols? If that makes any sense at all.
Well, I'm not super familiar with the project you mentioned, but I do know that in terms of on-chain order books, there are a couple of protocols trying to do the same thing. And I think what matters is composability. At the end of the day, an order book is just a representation of codes of intents of various users. And if a dApp is like Demex, for example, which is like the UI layer, right? If it's able to display the order books on multiple protocols, then and combine it together, then I think it's great for the user. And I don't think that it's possible to force everyone to kind of use a single central order book layer. I think that's a bit naive for various reasons. But and at the same time also in the spirit of decentralization, I don't think that's a good model to go by. If your protocol is to say that, okay, I'm providing you guys with an order book layer, I mean, that's fine. But of course, for us, we have built, because our premise was that we want to make sure that everything that needs to be done can be done within the protocol. So we have built the order book engine within the protocol. Whether you use it or not, it's a different matter altogether. For example, it's possible to interact with the swap, the liquidity pool modules. It's possible to do CDPs and things like that separately from the order book. So it's really about providing the building blocks and making sure that it's available for the developers and the users when the time comes.
Before I gonna jump to most of the community questions, I would love to hear a little bit about your background. I do know that you worked as a CTO in several companies. You worked in SaaS and HR. And if the information is correct, of course, this is the internet is full of magical information these days when you want to find something about a person. Before, like even that, how you heard of blockchain? I mean, you woke up one day and went, "I'm going to build a decentralized protocol." Right? It doesn't work like that. So how did you get to there? I would love to hear that.
Well, from my background first, I'm a technical person. So I used to be CTOs of many companies. None of them were blockchain related, of course. But for Switcheo Labs, no one wanted to be the face, so I had to do it. Yeah, so in terms of how we got to know it, how we got started with blockchain, it's really because of our technical background. We started really from the technology angle, not even from trying to build on it or even invest in it and things like that. How I first found out about blockchain was right around the time of Ethereum's ICO. So, of course, I've heard of Bitcoin and things like that, but I never really touched it. But what really got me interested was Ethereum's ICO because they shared it really well. They called it the world computer. So as a techie, I was like, wow, what's this cool thing? It appeared on Hacker News, right? This headline is like the world computer. So I went to look more into it. It looked pretty interesting. I didn't really understand it fully at the time. I was interested. So I wanted to try some. They had like the language, right? They had Solidity right smack in the center of the page. So I was like, hey, new language, let me try it out. But they said that to actually try it on production, right, mean that you need some ether. And the thing was that the ICO had already closed. And it was in this weird time. I just missed the end of the ICO. And then they were just doing their minting like 2 months later. So I was like, okay, maybe when they go live, I'll check on it 2 months later. Funny story, 2 months later, it really appeared on Hacker News and I really found it 2 days right after they launched their mainnet. But the thing was, when I went back, I was like, okay, time to play this cool new technology, right? They said that to get this ether, you need to go onto this website, Coinbase, and you got to buy Bitcoin and you got to swap it for ether and something like that. And then I was like, wait, what's this Coinbase? And at that time, it looked sketchy as shit. Coinbase was like some scam website. It looked bad. Okay. So I was like, okay, maybe this is like some scam or it's not going to work out. And funnily enough, just like a year later, or 6 months later, my teammate was working with me on one of the companies that I was in. Of the CTO, he was like one of my co-founders. He was like, "Have you heard of this thing called Ether? It went like 1,000% last week." And I was like, "Shit, okay, let's look at it like big time." So that's when we invested more time into looking at this whole technology stack. And like I said just now, we also look at new protocols like Neo, and we found these gaps, right? Like, hey, there's not enough people building on it. There's no decentralized protocols. Yeah, the rest is history, as I say.
You said that it was Coinbase was looking at the beginning sketchy as shit. I would like to add to that I think every single website related to crypto up until 2016, I think, or 17 even was looking sketchy as shit. I think some of them still look sketchy as shit actually. So it's
Yes.
normal. Obviously, your internal drive there was to improve their experience, I guess. But I think to me that sounds at least more like a professional drive. Did you connect at all to the philosophy of blockchain, to decentralization, or was that later already?
Definitely, we started from a technology angle, but we connected really early on, in part due to our frustration about tokens and things like that, and also in part due to the fundamentals of it. Fundamental as in like the premise that you should be able to control your wealth, you should be able to control where you want to spend your money. And that's the thing because it fits my persona very well, right? And that's the reason why if you look at my resume, I've never actually worked for anyone for very long because I like to control my destiny. I like to have a lot of say over my future, over what I do. And this control over how I use my money is also very fundamental to me. So definitely, that was one of the huge things that made us go into it and stick with it until now.
I can totally relate to every word you said there about the destiny. So I understand exactly what you mean. I think the being able to control of that and not believing in, well, for me at least, I'm sorry if I will offend anyone out there, but believing in such thing as fate and destiny, that the wind changes that or whatever, to me, that was always since childhood, I think, a very strange thought. And I always wanted to like understand, how do I control it? How do I do that? And to me, that's why I think blockchain was like, that's how you see you can control a lot of things just by eliminating the third party, right? By the way, one strange drink. I'm sorry if I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're having a drink over there. What's the drink for everybody who can't see? Come on.
This is like Smoke It. It's a whiskey on rocks.
Nice, nice. Well done. Mine is water. It's still a bit early for me, but I would love. It's quite usual. I have guests from very different time zone, and we always like. I'm drinking like one thing, like a tea or a water, because it's usually in the morning. But they're already drinking like whiskey, tequila, and I'm like, damn it, I need to change all that. I'm getting jealous. Sorry. Back to the questions. I think I'm gonna like do not a blitz, but I'm gonna start with some of the community questions, and some of them might be a little bit repetitive, so I'm gonna try to skip some. So let's start with the general ones, I think. Well, you did answer already what other dApps the team is working on. Is there any other teams? I'm going to derive a question from that. Are there any other teams apart from, let's say, the Switcheo Labs or Carbon Protocol in-house teams, which are currently sponsored either by grants or community pools that are working on other dApps and protocol in the ecosystem?
Not direct. So two things. One is that we've been ideating this dApp that it's meant to be a competitor to 1inch. That's also multi-chain, and that's still quite in the early works. So I can't say too much into it, but definitely the Demex will not be the only sort of application that runs on Carbon. And the other thing is there are also teams that are working on apps for Carbon, but not directly user facing. So like liquidity enhancement, liquidity bridging, things like that. Our main focus now for the protocol is really getting the TVL up, getting the liquidity in. So that's why a lot of the projects that we are trying to bootstrap, trying to grow right now are very liquidity focused more than like application focused.
Okay, great. Second one, what are you most excited about going forward? I love this question. This is one of my types of questions. I guess it's a very general question towards anything you want to take it off, whether it's the project or your own focus in life or whatever. I'll let you flow with whatever you want.
Yeah, just so many. So let's try to reduce the number. Of course, we're going to launch a new sort of financial product, right? We already have data futures. We're going to go with perpetuals. So like Bitcoin perpetuals, Atom perpetuals, that's going to go live like within 1 or 2 weeks, I think. But what really excites me the most would probably be the money market and CDP module that we have recently added to the roadmap. So we haven't really talked much about it. I think we haven't even published the article. Hopefully the team will not be too upset. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to front run them a bit. So we're going to build a money market for the Cosmos ecosystem. And the idea here is that there will be a borrowing and lending market for all Cosmos app chains. So you can collateralize your, say, Osmo and borrow Atom, for example, or even USDC, and then use this to trade, use this to long or short, etc. And more importantly, with this whole multi-collateral money market, we also are looking at introducing a stablecoin. I know there's a couple of stablecoins trying to coming out for the Cosmos ecosystem, but we are hoping that our version of it will be the most useful for users. Two reasons. One is because of the way we're going to build this. We're going to build it such that there will be you can use many types of Cosmos app chains tokens at once to back this minting of the stablecoin. And on top of that, this stablecoin can be used on Demex futures and perpetuals markets. So this is like a USD token that you can actually trade. You can long and short Bitcoin. You can long and short Ethereum on.
I have one suggestion for you. Don't hire Doc One if you're gonna plan to do a stable coin. Because Doc One, I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. But if I was to take the same question of what are you most excited about going forward outside of Switcheo and Carbon and apply it to your, let's say, like your decentralized opinions and the way you see the Web3 going forward, is there anything like technology or any type of, not even app, but maybe, yeah, technology, let's go with that you're really excited about in the Web3 space or protocol?
Right. I really want to be able to really not use banks anymore. I think that's what would really excite me. And I think we're getting there, but we are kind of so close, but so far. The reason why I say that is that upcoming, there's the merge with Ethereum, right? They're going to go to proof of stake. That's like a huge one, in my opinion. It's really the next step to making it mass market enough because the proof of work system just didn't work, right? And Ethereum is still the fundamental sort of consensus layer. Then the next steps will be like getting all these layer twos to interoperate properly. Now there's too many layer twos, it's like siloed again. What I really want to see is for all of them to interconnect, all of them to be liquid with each other. And of course, ideally implement some sort of inter-blockchain standard. So implement IBC with the other IBC app chains. And then we have this whole a truly decentralized network of protocols of value of monies flowing around without anyone stopping them. And then at that point, you really don't need banks, I feel. I mean, I've a pet peeve with like banks and financial institutions too. The funny thing is that I didn't used to have this annoyance with them. It was only after I made money and then I got more annoyed because they're just terrible. It's like, oh, you do crypto? No bank account for you. No matter, yeah, it's ridiculous.
I totally understand what you mean. It is ridiculous. What do you think is the biggest things that stopping the world of realizing that the evil is not the rich people or the poor people? The evil is the middleman that stands in the middle and tries to put one against the other, which is, for example, today is the banks in some way, right? Which do a lot of things. Well, you already kind of mentioned that, but what do you think is the biggest thing to people to see that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to convince people in that manner. I think for the crypto community, for us, what we really need to focus on is on making it better than the alternative. So the example I love to give was back then the cable companies, right? The TV cable companies, there were a lot of them and they just charge ridiculous amounts for like packages. They package like a bunch of stuff and then you only need one of them and then you pay a shitload of money. So the Pirate Bay came along and then they started losing share because everyone was like, hey, this is free, this is easy. And people started moving towards that. But the thing was that it was not really about the fees or anything. And the reason why you know that is because Netflix came along and everyone stopped pirating shit. Everyone just signed up for Netflix. Why? Because Netflix gave a better user experience. They go to Netflix, they have everything, they just one button, it streams, fine, it's $15, I'll pay for it. And that's the thing we actually need to do. We need to give users a better experience than the banks. And until we do that, it's very hard to convince people otherwise. So for us as in the crypto space, we really need to work on user experience. We need to work on getting people to onboard easily if we actually want the masses to figure out the better alternative. So the things I like to point out, it's always like application safety. How do you make sure that users know they're on the correct front end? Wallet UX, how do you actually protect the user by improving the wallets? For example, the wallets can check contract addresses, they can vet transactions for you, things like that. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do to actually make it better for users. And then you don't even need to convince them because it's an equal or better experience and the banks, any little fault that TradFi does, it's a very easy switch from there. Right now, it's not an easy switch. And I think that's actually the main problem.
Could you summarize your words that it's not about convincing users, it's about giving them adoption, it's about giving them, bringing that industry to a point where users don't need to think, not to think in general, like not to use their brain, but not to like be overwhelmed with the amount of switches, let's say like a
Correct.
pilot cabin thing where
Yeah.
you're like, what am I doing? Like, and just boom, and $15 and you're gone kind of thing.
Correct. So it's not about convincing them about something, it's just showing them that there's a better alternative. And that's what we need to focus on.
It's interesting that you say that it's not about convincing because like in the last, let's say 10 years or even a little bit more that I've been around blockchain, one thing that I came to realize like last year only or a little bit before that was when I was all this time talking about blockchain to other people, I found it very difficult. Like, I mean, first people who never heard about it. And then what I realized is this is, you don't need to talk about blockchain to show people the benefits of blockchain. You need to explain to them how the current system works. And then they're like, so what do we do with it? Like, how do we change that? And I'm like, well, then there is this thing. Yeah, it's maybe not ready, but I like that you say it has a similar direction. The next question, like two or three of them, I'm going to kind of a little bit combine them because they're a little bit similar, but they're a little bit more specific. And I hear a cat. Is there a cat? Show me the cat. Come on. Where is the cat? Come on. I want to see the cat. Where is the cat?
It's outside. Well, I don't know if you come in.
Okay.
Let's
She
see.
doesn't want to go in. Let's see. Mine doesn't want to go in as well. She ran away too. But people love cats. Come,
All right.
kitty. Where are you? Where are you, cat? Let's see the cat.
Here's Cuddles.
Oh, Cuddles.
All right.
Is that the name?
This
Oh, that is so cute.
Yeah, Cuddles.
She's huge.
He
She's
loves cuddling.
huge.
Yeah, it's a him, but he looks like a girl.
Oh, it's a him. I'm sorry. He's huge.
He's a very pretty guy. Pretty boy. Very
He's
pretty
a very
boy.
good looking guy. Wow, he's huge. If my cat is somewhere run away, but if she came in, you would see why I'm saying that because she's like this. She's tiny, pitsy. Okay, so cute moments are over, guys. So back to crypto, back to the hardcore stuff. Where do you see Carbon, Demex, and I'm gonna add all the other protocols that you're working on in the next like 3 to 5 years? And you kind of answered that already. But apart from more adoption, do you see anything else that you think will happen in the next 3-5 years for those protocols that you're building? I mean,
yeah, our hope is, of course, that it will really be a. Yeah, how I really see it is that it should be a equivalent alternative to what users use today, whether it's Deribit for options or FTX for futures or Binance for their spot markets. I think that's the level we want to achieve, and I do strongly believe that we can get to that level. And of course, the thing about the crypto space is that it's not path independent. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of outreach, in terms of getting people to know about these alternatives. And that's something we're working really hard towards, and we want to achieve that sort of end goal.
So, slightly more specific questions, I guess. They're going to be a bit, I would assume, easier for you. And again, guys, whoever's in the audience listening, not even right now, but to the recording, of course, as well. I'm sorry, I won't be able to ask the whole questions. You're great. There is a lot of them, and thank you for them. But so I'm going to carry on. Is Demex token something you consider?
It's definitely something that we have been thinking about, but we are not if you look at our team, we don't launch tokens like nonstop. Even though we have so many projects, we have there's just carbon token, right? There's only one token for this ecosystem. And the reason is that we don't like to tokens for the sake of doing tokens. However, it's something we're considering because we do want to ensure that each entity, it's decentralized, each entity has its own sort of governance, has its own sort of community that can run itself. We want it to work even without Switcheo Labs. So if for that to happen, eventually that's probably a necessary thing. So what I mean here is that we see Carbon as sort of like the base layer, right? The protocol layer, something like Ethereum, and Demex would be something like Uniswap. So it does make sense for the application to have a token for various things. So one of the things is that we're trying to solve, and that has came out recently with the Tornado Cash sanctions and things like that, is who's going to host the UI? What if Switcheo Labs cannot host the UI? And therefore, can we use a token to incentivize a decentralized hosting of the UI that anyone can access in a censorship resistant, in a permissionless manner? So that's one of the first use case that it's not really a use case. It's more like, how do we incentivize this? The only way is like, okay, maybe a token. And the other thing, it's also in terms of governing what should be displayed, what should be accepted on the UI, governing things like incentive programs. So the other thing is incentives, right? I think it will be good to have each application have its own incentive mechanisms for users. If you use Demex as opposed to another application on Carbon, you should have say in how Demex works. So it goes back to the same mechanic that DeFi users, right? That your users are your owners. And the way to do that is to have a Demex token for Demex users.
And again, I'm going to use the question and a little bit go over it because you mentioned that essentially you would, why not consider ownership tokens or governance tokens, whatever is the right way to call them, for every single protocol to make it more decentralized. Would you be considering, I don't like airdrops questions, but let's go with it. Sorry, guys, whoever left that question. It's just about the airdrops in general. So if the Demex token came out or any other protocols currently that don't have a token in the ecosystem came out, would you be considering airdrops to Atom communities or osmosis communities to raise awareness?
Yeah, I think definitely that's one of the main initial distribution methods that we will consider. And again, it goes back to my point just now where one of the main reasons for having a new token or a DMAX token would be to incentivize to attract users to the application. So it does make sense to that sort of airdrop model, in my opinion.
Would Atom be considered as a possibility for the time when the perpetuals markets will be launched?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the main things that we want to do at the start is to have perpetual markets for a lot of the Cosmos tokens, a lot of the Cosmos chains, because I feel right now there's not many venues where you can actually do that. And since we are within the Cosmos ecosystem, we do want to start with supporting the various applications within the ecosystem.
How is the progress of CDP going?
I think the team is going to kill me, but I think I want to launch it by the end of, I want to launch it by the end of like next month at the latest. That's what I'm going for. Yeah, we'll see.
I have a feeling they sent you Cuddles as a spy, and Cuddles is just like transferring the information right now and saying, Ivan is like giving it all away, man. Guys, come on, we have to work too hard now the next month. No, I'm joking. Let me see. There's a couple of more questions in the chat as well, because most of them you actually, I just realized like reading the questions, there's still a lot, but most of them you did answer as you touched on as you were talking. How are you planning to increase the volume on Demex? Currently, people are saying the volume isn't very high. Are there any plans that you have to increase that, and how?
Well, I think for volume, the first thing is liquidity. And that's why I mentioned just now we're working on multiple liquidity programs at the same time. Some of them are already like really close. They're already in place, just that the amount is small. We are trying to make sure that we improve the reliability and the security of these programs first. And when you have a decent enough liquidity, what do I mean by liquidity here is that if your order book only has like, I don't know, $5,000 each side, or your liquidity pool is like 20, like less than a million, right? There's not much a large trader can do. And I don't think it's possible to have volume without like that sort of deep liquidity. And any volume you get is probably like, I don't know, fake, or it's just mining your program, or it's just you farming your incentive program. So first step is liquidity. When we see that deep, then I think you can ask like, okay, how do we get volume now? And of course, we do have plans in terms for that stage as well. One of them, of course, is like the Demex token you talked about. Can that be used as an incentive for users to try out Demex? Second thing is it's in terms of the traditional campaigns that centralized exchanges run. Can we as a DAO come up with regular competitions, trading programs, referral schemes, etc., etc. I think all those ammunition, they are things that as a ecosystem we can use together, and we have not actually even activated it yet. So to be honest, like the future, it's bright. The upside is still untapped, and we will get there, I think.
And thank you for that answering that bunch of questions. That was a bombardment a little bit. I'm going to take it a little bit to a resume, but I'm going to have it with a question at first. I have two more questions from myself. One is, well, you do have a very active Twitter and you have a lot of things on there, but I decided usually I do pick a quote and ask you a little bit to go over it, but I'm going to actually go with the Switcheo website. And there is one of the first quotes that we see when we go on the Switcheo website. It says, enabling a world where trust is optional. So, do you really believe that we can come today as we are today as humanity, as society, to a world where we don't need trust? Is that really you think is possible?
I think in a large amount, in a lot of ways, I think it's possible. Right now, it's not just trust, it's also reliance. And probably that's the key idea we're going for. There's a lot of reliance on this trust that doesn't need to be there. And because of this reliance, people abuse the trust that you give them. And that is really the main trust of this statement. Can we remove this reliance on trust, where you can still trust people, but it is optional?
I really hope that we get to that stage while we're still young. I guess you're more optimistic than me about the way it is, but it's good. It's good. On that note, to resume all that and considering, again, you're building like this huge ecosystem, which is multi chain, which is important, in my opinion, not siloed out somewhere in its own little world. What keeps you motivated in your daily life, a day after day, to wake up and to keep on building, whether you're wearing the hat of the co-founder of Switcheo Labs, or you're the CEO of Carbon Protocol today, more in that, or you need to think about liquidity or take care of cattle or whatever. What motivates you to wake up every day and keep on going and building, man?
I think I do have a lot of things going for me. First of all, I love what I do. I love building in general. I love technology. I love looking at these crazy new ideas that everyone comes out with now and then. Sometimes they're bad ideas, and then we'll like have arguments over why UST doesn't work and things like that. In general, I really love what I do. So that's the first thing. So I don't do it for the sake of money or anything like that. Even if it doesn't pay me, I would still like want to build it. The second thing is, I guess, the team and the vision. So I have gathered a team that's really great to work with, and they're like superb in terms of everything, whatever their role is. And that's something that keeps me motivated to get to the office and hack things out with them. Yeah. I was talking about the vision. At the end of the day, I believe that what we are building is useful. It's going to work. Even if we don't build it, I feel that someone else will build it. And then why not us? Why not we take the chance, take the step at it, and build something that could be the next big thing, the thing that everyone will use in 5 or 10 years. So yeah, all this really keeps me 8 a.m. I'm like awake and like, okay, what should we do now?
Love it, man. Love it. That was a good answer. I like it. Thank you. Ivan, is there anything else you would like to mention that I didn't ask at all?
I think we covered like a lot of things. So I guess it's really for the new users. If you're from the Cosmos ecosystem, haven't really heard of us, do check us out. Carbon.network, dem.exchange. Do check out our protocols and let us know what you think. The social media channels are all there. Yeah.
For sure, guys. If you're first time you heard of either the Cosmos ecosystem or any of the protocols we mentioned, there's going to be all of the links that Ivan mentioned, all of them, all of the protocols, all of the papers. It's all going to be there. And if you can't find it, we're doing a bad job, but I think we're doing okay. So, Ivan, thank you very, very much for your time. It's been a really great pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.